You can spend hours going down the melody rabbit hole, or if you're like me, years learning how to play guitar, getting all your grades, learning about scales and arpeggios. But I'm going to show you everything you need to make really good melodies in just a few minutes. The first thing you want to start with is a bass line or some root notes for your melody. This carries the vibe and the emotional journey of your melody. For example, if you have a kind of weird ending that leaves your audience in suspense without a resolution, this is perfect for a dark kind of melody. But if it has a really happy kind of resolution and lots of major chords, this is something that's a bit better for pop, maybe even EDM. So I have this dark kind of bass line here. I'm going to duplicate this bass line onto a pluck like this, and this is where I'm going to build out the full melody. What you're going to want to do is turn this bass line into a chord or a triad by going and doing something like this. I'm going into view and scale highlighting, and I'm just selecting the C minor scale. What this means is the highlighted notes in the background are all going to be in this scale. So to build a triad around a note, I'm going to add 2 notes to it. And the distance between these notes determines whether it's a minor chord or a major chord. If there's 2 gaps here and then 3 gaps here, that makes it a minor chord. And if it's the opposite, that's a major chord versus this minor chord here. You'll notice if you want a dark kind of sound, you want to mainly stick to minor chords. I'm going to build chords around this bass line here. And I also added some other notes up the top just to make these chords sound a little bit wider. I'm going to save these notes for later for a supporting melody, but these are basically the triads we have. And I went back to these triads because I want to show you something cool you can do to this melody. If you hold down Control and Shift, you can select all of the middle notes. And if you raise this up or down an octave, it's going to invert the chord. And it's one way to very quickly get a different feeling of your chord progression without going and having to make a new chord progression. And let's just say you wanted something a little bit happier. I'm going to go here, View, Scale Highlighting, and I'm going to change this back to major, for example. And now I'm going to start building some major chords. And as you'll see, this is going to give a completely different feel to the melody. This is something with a bit of a happier kind of dance vibe. And not only can you manipulate the notes to get the feeling you want, you can also change the timing. But going back to our previous example, I'm going to grab this melody layer here. And I'm going to go and follow the notes in the background to create a supporting melody. I recommend turning ghost notes on. I'm going to follow some of the notes of this chord with the supporting melody. I'm also going to lower this down an octave. This sounds really good in context. It can also be really good to add some texture and rhythm to your melody. I have this arpeggio here. And I basically copy and pasted the supporting melody on top of it, lifted it up an octave, and this is what this sounds like. We also have this sound here. which is going to add so much texture on top of the melody as well. A counter melody can add some mystery and suspense to your melody. It does this by going against what the normal melodies, chords, bass line, and supporting melodies are doing. I like going up and adding some higher notes in the scale. For example, we have these here. And also this one here, which isn't really in the chord progression, so it's not going to clash, but I think it'll sound really good when they come together. I ended up with this melody here. Something else you can do is grab a sound like this, go and grab your chord progression and copy it on top of that sound, and do Alt-A, which opens up an arpeggiator. And just like that, you have that really high energy arpeggio which sits on top of everything. So to mix it, we have this bass line here. This pluck is kind of the main chord progression. I'm going to just cut off some of the low end here. As you can see, there are all these frequencies down here that you don't really hear, but they really clash with the bass line and the 808 if you add one. I'm just going to grab a random drum loop out of this sample pack that we released here. It's free and it has over 4 GB of royalty-free samples. So click the link in the description to download that for free. But this is what this sounds like with a beat on it. If you want a different type of vibe for your melody, try and change around the scale, and within the scale, go and pick different root notes. From there, if you don't like the sound of a certain chord, try switching it from a major to a minor chord or vice versa. Go and try and learn about diminished chords and suspended chords, which I rarely use, but these are very popular in genres like lo-fi, for example. From there, go and send all your layers to a mixer track. Cut out the harsh clashing frequencies. If you feel your melody is too empty, try and use a different plugin for the chord progression that sounds a bit wider. Try and add some supporting melodies and layer that on top of your normal chord progression. And if you feel your melody is lacking energy, try and add an arpeggio or a counter melody that's going to add some mystery, some energy, and some texture. I hope you learned a lot from this free melody tutorial. If you want to see me show how you can create melodies like top producers, click on one of the recommended videos. And if you want over 4 GB of free, royalty-free samples and MIDI, download the free Music Mastery Production Suite demo in the description.